College students, what is the dumbest thing you've heard a fellow student say? When I first moved into a house off campus, I shared the top floor with a surprisingly slow-witted guy. He was quiet and had an overpass job, so I really only saw him when we were all drinking or hosting a party over Christmas, and old friend was hard up for cash. So I bought his childhood Northeasts and game collection. Probably overpaying since half my purpose was to help this guy out. It was a hit on our tiny TV. Most afternoons, a few people would be gathered around for some Tecmo Bowl or RC Pro-Am. Over spring break, when I had the place to myself, I beat the original Metroid. Good times. Then, near the end of the semester, just before dawn in the haze after a huge party, some strangers walk in and start hauling off our TV, stereo, etc. My upstairs floormat confronts them, and one of these shady intruders says, "We are with the electronics repair service. We'll have these back to you right away." This guy proceeds to hold the door and help them with our old VCR. Most of the house had theater majors, so studying particular performances was legitimate homework, and then my Northeasts. They even got the cartridges. But when they started hauling out CDs, he finally became suspicious. The specific dumbest thing regarding strangers who show up 5 AM and start hauling off the most valuable items from our front room was, they told me they were the electronics repair crew, so I helped them get everything out to their van. We had someone else living in that room the following year. I mean, these people wouldn't scam people like that if no one fell for it once in a while. I was assigned a 2-person group project and a partner. She tells me straight up, "I'm too busy for this. You can do it." Tell her that's not how it works. She'll have to do her share. She doesn't care or respond to any further email on it. So I do all the work. Hand it in with a cover letter explaining she did nothing. I get 90%. She gets 0% in front of the whole class. She says, "Ganglerbutt is a piece of shit and gave me 0 on this assignment. It's not fair. And he's a ducking asshole." Professor, "Oh, well, he informed me you didn't do any of the work on the project. Was this not the case?" Girl, that's not how it works. A group project means we all get the same mark. No matter how much work you do, it means one person gets a break from the assignment. Professor, nope. That's not how that works. I love people who fight really hard when they are clearly in the wrong. It's just an amazing sight. Like a bald eagle doing trig on an abacus. Beautiful. When they abort the baby, does it die? But you can't hold on alcohol. You just digest it. Both overheard from different people during an upper division medical ethics class. I tutored for the athletic department as an undergrad, and as a philosophy major, I tutored medical ethics. It was part of the curriculum for just about anyone going into anything medical related. So it was a very popular class. What I ended up feeling was, dear God, these people are going into medicine. In an ethics class, a girl decked out in a horrible clash of designer name brands on every article of clothing and personal precision raised her hand and said, "The difference between rich people and poor people is that rich people know how to say thank you." We were discussing the differences between wealthy and poverty level treatment in a courtroom. Also, in a final exam for a criminal procedure class, there was a typo. I forget what it said, but it was supposed to say mortal as in mortal wound. Everyone pretty much made out what it was supposed to say through the context of the sentence, except this one girl. She went up to ask the teacher what the misspelled word meant, and he announced to the class the correct spelling. She stood there and asked him what mortal meant. He just looked at her and said in the dead silence of a final exam, "You're a 4th-year criminal justice major in a criminal procedure class. I'm not going to explain to you what a mortal wound is." Apostrophe. I thought Ben Franklin invented lightning. This was said during a class on Western civilization. What a dick. Who knows how many lives lost to brush fires he's responsible for. Ben Franklin is a devil. During an MBA marketing class, we had group projects where we basically had a set of data given to us to come up with a marketing plan. One group took the customer data and proudly averaged all of the customers' zip codes to get the geographical center of their customer base. Later in the professor's office, they argued when the prof told them it didn't work that way. The team leader said, "Well, That's just your opinion, and stomped out. Actually, a week ago, we had just gotten out of our final exam for the year, and this girl is making her way to the door. Before she even reaches it, she says to her friend, "Yeah, I had to copy a few parts of my book to reach the word count." You ever hear a record scratch in real life? And that 90s meme following it? That pretty much happened. The teacher called the girl up to the front and silently, without a word, began to go into the paper logs and saw that Turnitin had a 75% plagiarism rate. It was, well, for her, it probably sucked ass. But for the rest of us, golden city of how do you duck up this bad? The girl I had a crush on copied her whole report for a semester project from Stack Overflow. It was so bad, 91% plagiarism rate, that the professor, who was lazy, hid it so that he wouldn't have to deal with the hassle of reporting her, and gave her an A. And she thought no one knew. But pretty much everyone in our common circle knows. And she's now going to join a prestigious tech company in London, while I'm still searching for a good job. Some days I do not know what to make of life. It was in a match class when a teacher was trying to get a girl to understand that 1/3 is larger than 1/4, but she wasn't having any of it. According to her, 1/4 was larger because there are 4 1/4s to make a whole and only 3 1/3s to make 1/2. So there are more 1/4s. More is larger. Therefore 1/4 is larger. Even when the teacher tore a piece of paper in 3 and another in 4, wrote 1/3 and 1/4 on the corresponding papers, threw everything away but 1 1/3 and 1 1/4, and asked her which is larger, she still went for the 1/4. Teacher sat down, didn't say anything for a minute, and then continued class. That was the first time I'd ever witnessed someone giving up on a person like that. I seem to remember R&W advertised 1/3 pound burgers in comparison to the, I think, McDonald's 1/4 pound burgers for the same price. But due to people thinking a 1/3 was smaller, no one bought them. A lot of people don't understand basic fractions. Professor here, student was upset that I didn't send him an email reminding him homework was due. I apologized and asked if there was anything else I could do for him. Maybe his laundry, grocery shopping, etc. He stormed out of the classroom. Other students laughed. Professor here, but I also work as a coach/advisor at a non-profit educational agency. One student of mine, who, bless his heart, annoys the living duck out of me with his self-pity, didn't show up to any of his orientations or registration appointments, and, as a result, couldn't start college on time. This is a community college that enrolls well over 28,000 students when you consider all the night classes and part-time kids as well. When discussing how he can't start on time cause he didn't get his shit together and show up for it, he says I can't believe they started class without me. He thought that a college that enrolls 28,000 students might have simply waited for him before starting. My favorite has got to be when a student read World War II as World War XI. 2 girls, business majors, very stereotype. Why? Around 2010, we should start a website where anyone can sign up and simply pay a fee to charge their laptops over the internet. Oh yeah, that's a good idea, no mention of peripherals. So I can only assume the website hacks into the router you're connected to, turns it into a Tesla coil, and arcs a surge of electricity from the device to your laptop battery. After reading this thread, I'm pretty sure a website with just a charging icon would be a huge success among college students. One girl asked if she went $300 over her credit limit, if she would have to pay it back. First week of college, I watched this kid cut in line get confronted by his peers. His response was, "As far as I'm concerned, I'm more attractive than you." Apostrophe. One time in class, a girl was doing a presentation where she described a man from Uganda as African American and didn't understand why that wasn't right. He isn't Asian. He's from Japan. Apostrophe. In a literature class, girl, so, all those Greek gods and goddesses, what happened to them, professor? Confused, you mean in the story? Girl, no, like, What happened to them, Professor? I'm not sure I understand what you're asking. Girl, like, why are they not around anymore? Did they all die? The whole class was just a stunned silence. Edit. The professor gave her a very vague answer like, well, that's open to your own interpretation. I could tell she was trying not to sound condescending. She handled that way better than I would. Student. Do rocks have DNA? Prof. No, rocks are not living. Student. Then how do they reproduce? How is there not only just one rock? This was a 300 level genetics class. We were playing some drinking game. Someone correctly answers a question with Afghanistan. This girl laughs out loud and goes, Afghanistan isn't a country. We all turned at once and laughed at her. In my boyfriend's speech communication class, a guy got up to give his speech. It was obvious he didn't have one prepared. He started with, alright, ladies raise your hand if you are single. So the reason you ladies are single is you need to lower your standards. He then called a super athletic, good looking classmate to the front and said, you keep going for these guys when you should be going for, and proceeds to call the super obese guy in the class to the front. I can't make this shit up. Similar thing happened in my communication class. They were piss easy to pass speeches. Like, people were passing with minute-long gaps between saying anything in the 3 minutes long speeches. Only one person failed by bringing up how gay marriage should be illegal because it causes people to have sex with animals. She didn't understand why the lecturer was trying to cut it short. I don't know why I thought this was so funny, but a kid on my floor needed to borrow a screwdriver to undo his window and couldn't get it to unscrew while saying to himself, lefty tighty righty loosey. In Germany we say, so lange das Deutsch Reich bestet. Word die Skorb rechts Jedred, which means, as long as the German Reich exists, the screw will be turned to the right. It's politically /view 200b not correct, but easy to remember. Edit. Exists not consist. Thank you /Sabiola. A friend of mine was taking apart a printer in the id lab and another friend turned to see him opening it up and yelled, don't drink the ink, completely seriously, because that's how dumb he thought the first friend was. That he would immediately drink printer ink if given a chance. The topic of oral sex came up while the professor stepped out. After a good 12 minutes of talking about technique, preferences, past experiences, a male student finally says, I'll never come in a girl's mouth though. I wouldn't want to get her pregnant. He was absolutely serious. While my then girlfriend was at uni, she lived with an alcoholic. To try and stop him from drinking, they got him hooked on smoking in an effort to change his addiction. Her words to me were, he had an alcohol problem, so we got him smoking. Now he's an alcoholic that smokes. This thread is hella rolled already, but I have to get this off my chest. I once had to tell another student, a grown-ass adult, that Canada does indeed stretch from sea to sea, and we don't live in the Ducking Hills. This is at a regular ass community college in California. She said she thought it was an East Coast thing. Canada. She thought that ducking Canada was only a thing on the east coast of the North American continent. A friend of mine moved into a new place at the start of his second year and threw a big house party to celebrate. It was great. It was wild. Fun was had. While nothing got broken. His living room got messed up quite a bit. Pillows all over the place. Chair tipped over. I think someone made a fort out of pizza boxes. Anyway, I go round this dude's house about 5 months later, and the living room is largely in the same state I last saw it in at that party. In fact, so was lots of the house. It had barely been cleaned. Mold was on a ton of dishes, and there was a mushroom growing out of the wall in the bathroom. I asked him, why the hell hadn't they tidied any of it up? And he said, we figured we'd have another party again soon, so why bother cleaning up? 6 of my guy friends rented a place together during school. Their place was so filthy that when I was over I would walk across the street to use the bathroom. A gas station bathroom. Teacher, name a country beginning with E. Classmate, euthanasia. For reference, I live in England. Professor was demonstrating the need for quality checks Asked several students to measure a piece of paper that was normal, printer paper sized. One kid was supposed to measure in inches, another was supposed to measure in centimeters. Kid who measured in centimeters said the paper was 108 centimeters long. Now this is regular paper, 1 foot long on its longest day. This fellow did not even think twice before saying it was over a meter long. Nobody even picked up on this until it was remeasured for a quality check. Mind blowing. The other day I heard a girl giving a speech over nicotine addiction. This was supposed to be informative and have credible sources. I kid you not. I do not believe that cigarettes are addictive. I tried them once. I'm not addicted. I had to try very hard to not start laughing. A credible source was a requirement for this assignment. But professor, I'm a credible source. Apostrophe. Had a class about crime and sexual assault. Lecturer was going over a study that stated that on average, men were physically stronger than women. Girl raised her hand and said that's sexist, citing that women bodybuilders and shit exist. We had done 3 years of stats by that point. How she did not know the difference between averages, outliers or distributions was beyond me. Poor lecturer looked dumbfounded. Canada passed a law that changed the status of some of the legalities around prostitution, and a girl in my class asked the professor before class, now that prostitution is legal, should I put it on my resume? The collective facepalm was heard around campus. If fish don't have lungs, how do they breathe? I'm a second year biology student. Before class started, a few of us were talking about various states we had been to. One mentioned Alaska being attached to Canada. This prompted a girl to chime in that Alaska is an island. She apparently thought that Alaska and Hawaii were located at the southwest corner of the US, like they are portrayed in the maps that just show the 50 states. We shouldn't have to vaccinate men for HPV because it doesn't hurt them. I actually had this argument with a peer and a professor. They still didn't understand it in the end. We are all scientists. But even if it didn't increase the risk of getting cancer in men, wouldn't it make sense to stop transmission to women by vaccinating men? What about the logic is unclear. Seems like they were thinking about it theoretically rather than realistically. Sure, if you vaccinate 100% of women, you wouldn't necessarily need to vaccinate men. Realistically, vaccinating men will reduce cases in women much faster than vaccinating women alone. And in the long run perhaps even wipe out HPV altogether. But I'm pretty sure HPV can increase cancer risk in men too, so their argument is flawed from the start. Hey, thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.